Good
So
save. Good save.
anticlimactic culture.
Glad, because I had a great stinger loaded up for this. Because let me tell you, there are some what do you call it, bonker sauce things going on with this. They have really irritated the little people in a big way. So the star of Little People Big World, Zach Roloff, torches Peter Dinklage and Disney's Snow White. This coming to us from That Park Place, written by John F. Trent. And apparently, he's not being quiet about this. So, following the trailer, he just kind of went off. As first reported by Cosmic Book News, who does a great job with this type of thing, Roloff expressed his thoughts via some Instagram story posts. Ex user Reality TV for Life shared the pair of posts where Roloff wrote, "If you've been following our podcast, I've had thoughts on this. They updated, diversified Snow White, but went way backward on the dwarf side. Hope Dinklage is happy." Woohoo!
Yeah, he's the cause of this.
He is. He is. The next paragraph in the second post he wrote. So they aren't just taking away the dwarves and making Snow White. They are CGIing the dwarves, which this isn't 1937. There are a lot of people with dwarfism walking around, either focus on Snow White or her own, on her own, or or the dwarf representation. That makes perfect sense. So these are the posts that went out there in the world talking about this. Thank you to the Reality TV for Life for posting that. But back at the beginning of 2022, just a little history here, Dinklage appeared on the WTF with Mark Maron podcast, where he criticized the Walt Disney Company for their upcoming live-action Snow White film. At the time, he said, well, it's really progressive to cast a literal, no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback by, they're very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. But you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So this takes a step back and look at what you're doing there, he continued. It makes no sense to me because you're progressive in one way, but you're still making that blanking backwards story of the seven dwarves living in a cave. I'm sorry. First of all, he's factually incorrect.
Yeah.
Because they live in a nice cottage.
Yep.
In the Disney represented version of this. So he really is unfamiliar with the subject matter. But regardless, what the flip are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess that's a joke. I guess I'm not loud enough. Well, you're darn annoying, dude.
Yeah.
He concluded these statements by saying, I don't know what studio that is, but they were so proud of that. And all love and respect to the actress and the people who thought they were doing the right thing. But I'm just like, what are you doing? He finally summed it up later in the podcast saying, if you tell the story of Snow White and its most effed up cool and progressive spin on it, let's do it. All in. But I just don't know. So that was bonker sauce enough, right? In that podcast. You guys remember that one? Remember when the story originally broke?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a couple years ago now.
Yeah. It's been a minute.
He added, or I guess it was added by a spokesman from Walt Disney Company, to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film. We're taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. Did you guys see the trailer?
Yeah, it looked like shit.
Yeah, well, that may be true, but it didn't really have any real dwarves in it. There is one dwarf in the cast, but he's not represented there. He's probably represented in like miniature or in CGI, but the only dwarf that they cast still won't be on camera, as far as I know. Isn't that weird?
I just feel like I want to say to Dinklage, I want to say, Peter, the world doesn't revolve around you and the dwarf community. Okay? Yeah. Like, I don't care. Nobody really cares. Like, there's this thing like a Michael J. Fox sort of syndrome. Like, he's got, it's a human thing. So I'm not really trying to dunk on him too much, but You know, if you've got Parkinson's disease, like Michael J. Fox, for example, all you care about is Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. If you've got dwarfism, all you care about is dwarfism and furthering the dwarf community. Okay, the rest of the world don't give a shit though, right? I don't care if they make them CGI or real. I don't care. Just try and make a good film that I'm probably not going to care about one way or another. So him getting all on his soapbox, on his high horse, all about what is this effed up? This isn't right. Don't care, Peter. I don't care. Just be quiet, dude.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, you know, I'm with you there. But what also I'm looking at here is that there's a problem with Disney's response because it wasn't true. The spokesperson was telling lies and that they were going to be reimagined as something else. Remember the 7 Dirty Hippies?
I remember that. Yeah.
So, and the Hollywood Reporter also asserted that the film has been in development for 3 years. The studio has been reimagining the dwarf character since the earliest stages. Except, guess what? If you watch the trailer, they're CGI dwarfs.
Yep.
So Roloff is not the only person to torch Danklage for his comments that seemingly caused this change in Snow White. Tara Jolie, known for the Little Women series of reality television shows, questioned Disney's claim that they reached to the members of the dwarfism community. She said, "I reached out to the largest little person community, which is called Little People of America. Did they hear from Disney? No. So who's this little person community you're reaching out to? Is it by the name of PD, Peter Danklage? It's a good question. Look, I mean, Disney has a tendency to talk out of both sides of their face or hat or whatever word you want to throw in there. I just think it's odd that this film has caused so much controversy so many times, and now it's so very expensive. How did they not go back to the drawing board and say, you know what, let's just make this really a live action film? Because if you look around, everything that's in that trailer is not, I mean, not everything, but most everything in that trailer is fake, computer generated stuff. I don't know. I tell you what, let's spin off of this and say, do you think that Disney ever legitimately contacted any large community of dwarves?
Hell no.
I doubt it. Yeah,
absolutely not. I don't think they contacted anybody. The thing is, they can say whatever they want. You know, they probably talked to maybe 1 or 2 people in their exclusivity, social engineering department or whatever, you know, who was basically like, we can't do this. This, you know, this is a bad look. This, you know, isn't going to sit well with these kind of people or whatever. We can't do this. We have to change it or something. They're like, oh, okay, you know, whatever it is for modern audiences, and you know, whatever we have to do to you know, make sure we don't hurt anybody's feelings, you know, we're gonna go ahead and do that. And then on top of that, for those of you that saw the trailer, which was, like I said, absolute garbage, they like intentionally made the lighting bad, so you couldn't tell how bad the CGI was, because they probably just slapped it together after the disco gang junkies got booted from being the dwarves, and they ended up going the CGI route. So yeah, I think this thing is gonna bomb. Disney sucks, and I don't see this thing getting over 50 million opening weekend when it drops.
I mean, I suspect what happened is, they didn't reach out to any small person community, or if they did, it was nominally. It was just to be able to say on paper that they did. I suspect that the way it works is that there'll be sort of a fairly large team of sort of power players and producers and things, you know, 20, 30, 50 people, I don't know what. And within there'll be a very small group of sort of the real players, you know, half a dozen power players that actually make the decisions, like a big decision, like whether the dwarves are going to be CGI or not. And yeah, they sit around and they've got no real artistic vision. They're sort of artistic and moral cowards, and they just saw how badly people dunked on those 7, you know, when it was 7 hippies, 7 dirty hippies or whatever it was. They saw how much everyone hated that, And so, you know, without, like I say, without having any guts or any vision, they just said, "Oh, okay, we'll drop that. We'll go back to actual dwarves." And then at some point they had a meeting. Are we going to have actual real life Peter Dinklage dwarves, or are we going to do CGI? And they just did some polling. They spent a load of money on some polling, which said it'd probably be best to have CGI ones, which was probably paid for by CGI companies or something. That's probably how it all went. You know, like I doubt there's any sort of real vision. You know, like what sprung to mind is someone like an old John Carpenter film, right? Where this guy's got a vision of the story he wants to tell and the way he wants it to look. And there's one person with an artistic vision at the top of it, and he gets it done. And sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, whatever. But this doing things by a committee with no guts, with no balls, and with no vision, yeah, you're going to end up with just nonsense. I mean, maybe it's a bit of an odd thing to say because so much is CGI these days, but it's nearly always going to be a bit of a weird mishmash when there's live action stuff with mostly CGI, right? I mean, you guys must remember the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You remember that?
Oh yeah,
with Bob Hoskins.
yeah.
That was, you know, one of the ones where it was such a weird mishmash of live action and animation or CGI or whatever you want to call it, that it was so odd and novel that for me anyway, it worked. For a lot of people, they really like the film Roger Rabbit. I do. But these days, people either give us an animated CGI film or at least make the CGI so realistic that you think it's all real life. You know, but to do this thing where Rachel Zegler's obviously a human and the dwarves are obviously, completely cartoonishly CGI.
Yeah.
Do people really want that? Do people really want to see that? Like a crap version of Roger Rabbit? I don't think many do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just looks like a big hot mess to me.
Yeah, it's on the same level as like Space Jam 2 with LaChina James.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Well,
yeah, not good.
Ultimately, I would say that this film is doomed because it will never recover its budget. I don't care. You know, they're really hoping for a Barbie audience, but at the same time, they've irritated so many different groups of people. You know, how can you truly proclaim yourself as woke if you go and see this film? I mean,
plus it's the classic thing, like the story of Snow White, the fable almost of Snow White, is very, very sort of European, Northwest European, really. Yeah. And they just, like a lot of these things, they only decided to do it so they could cast someone like Rachel Zegler in order to subvert it. So you're not really winning over. You're not really, you're not really properly pandering to either side. You know, either the people of color or the white audience. Nobody wants this.
Well, because they can't create anything. All they can do is subvert it or destroy it or whatnot. You know, and tear down the culture that came before. That's all they're doing. I mean, they're cultural vandals is one thing, but these are people literally on a mission to destroy Western culture as it is. I mean, this is a very Germanic story that was, I believe, one of the first published in Brothers Grimm back in the 1800s, and it is a story that had been passed down, mouth to mouth, or whatever you say, from mouth to ears by a storyteller for generations.
The oral tradition,
oral tradition. Thank you. That's a better way to say that. And then, when you get to the end of the day, when Disney recreates it, they soften it a little bit to make it a little less, horrifying. You get to that point, and it's already been basically created in a Western tradition, in a way that supports good moral values and everything else, and good versus evil and all of that, and ultimately one of the few heroes' journeys that females had at the time, and now you distort it with all of this inaccuracy, and now with all of this animus going against you. Disney's not doing things well, but who's doing things well are the people sending us some supers along the way. So we've got Al Humphreys here with a lovely £5 super sticker. It's proper money. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it, Al Humphreys. And we have another wonderful super chat, £20 sterling, another bit of proper money. Thank you, my friend. Dragon Reborn 35. Darren says, if there was a prawn parody of Rachel Zegler's Garbage, Snow White, and she was still in it, how do you think the prawn would play out? And do you think the CGI dwarves would be more submissive if she was dressed in leather? Wow, that's a lot to think about. It does put quite the montage of images in one's head. Let's see, Nick, since you're the resident expert on this type of film out there, what do you think about this parody, my friend?
I mean, it's probably better than what we're actually going to get.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Strong
you know,
take.
you know, in the when you're reading that, I was just thinking back of the actual trailer, and when she was like basically ordering the dwarves around, you know, so they seem to be pretty submissive because she's basically telling them, hey, you're gonna clean this, you're gonna do that, you're gonna do this. When in the original, it wasn't the dwarves that were cleaning jack shit, it was the animals. She had the animals in there cleaning, you know, because she didn't know that anybody even lived there.
Yeah, well, she just, you know, she was a, what do you call it? What do you call it when people slip into your house and you then just kind of move in? Squatters. She's a squatter. Yeah,
she's a squatter.
Yeah, she's a squatter. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then on top of that, you know, if she was dressed in leather, it'd probably be better. But I'd rather see Gal Gadot dressed in leather and play Snow White than Rachel Zegler. They should have actually swapped roles. You know, and now they're having beef on the internet, and they're kind of going at it. So, I mean, this whole thing is a disaster. But yeah, give me the prawn parody. I'll take that over the film that we're actually getting.
Wow. Okay. Well, Bo, you're up. What do you think of this idea from Dragon Reborn?
Well,
I'll be right back.
Dwarf-themed prawn has never been my bag. I don't mind going on the record saying that. It's never been my thing.
Okay.
But Rachel Zegler, I do think it is quite attractive. What was the woman that was in June? What was her name? You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Not at all.
You didn't watch June?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, they cast a woman of color in one of the main parts in June. Zendaya. Anyway, I honestly don't.
Dune. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, all right.
Sorry, it's the English
Yeah, I was like, because it sounded like you were saying the month of June, and I was like, all right. Now, I know. I'm American ears.
I honestly don't think she's very attractive. I think Rachel Zegler's all right. I mean, obviously she's got, her eyes are way too far apart. What is that? Orbital hypertolarism. Her eyes are too far apart. But nonetheless, she's quite attractive. So yeah, some sort of parody. You know, I'm not gonna be prudish. Yeah, it would be all right. But don't really want to see any dwarves. I've got to be honest. I'd rather not.
Yeah, I'm rather prudish when it comes to this. So yeah, no, but it's fine. I won't venture my thoughts outside of just saying it's an interesting idea. Yeah. Anyway, go. Did you have more to say?
Move along.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. I was like, I'm a bit. We were talking about it way too long. I was just.
Yeah. Right.
I was just trying to joke about, but we do appreciate the super chat indeed. Yeah. There's, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of different ideas inspired about this film that are better than any of the ideas that were had by Disney, and I just feel like they're headed for a certain disaster. They know they are. They have one of the least liked people in Hollywood right now, shilling for this film, who's now at war with her co-star over, you know, the battle in the Middle East right now, you know, for territory again. So it's just like, you know, you have, you know, Rachel, you know, promoting Palestine, and you have Gal Gadot, who was part of the IDF in Israel. And there seems to be a bit of animosity, and it did seem like it was showing publicly. So I'm like, this is all kinds of bad, because now you're irritating the people who are on either side of that situation. They're going to be like looking at this, if they follow any kind of social media, a little bit with a suspect eye. This is going to be a problem. Think about how many problems they have on this, Bo. I think it's like 5 or 6. They've irritated the little person community, the dwarf community. They've irritated the don't need no man folks. They've irritated the people who think you need a man folks. It's like, how many different fronts are you going to fight a battle on? And it's all because of this one girl.
I mean, it's a cautionary tale in all sorts of ways that it's not really wokeism, but I mean, that's part of it. But this idea of virtue signaling, that you end up eating your own tail, like a snake swallowing its own tail, is that it's never enough. You can never please everybody. That's an impossibility. Whatever you do, like you pander to Peter Dinklage, but not in the right way. Right? It's like you can never ever please everybody, and any attempt to do so is sort of doomed to fail. That's why, like I say, it was so much better back in the day, like in the say the 1980s, for example, where you got someone who wrote and perhaps directed or even was part of the production team on a project, and they had a vision of what they wanted to put up. They didn't care if it was a bit sexist or a little bit xenophobic or something. I think for a film like, I don't know, something like Total Recall, right? It's in bad taste. The original Arnie, Total Recall. There's loads of things that are in bad taste, right, about it. But back then, nobody cared. There wasn't a race to the bottom. There wasn't a race to pretend to be offended about things.
Yeah.
And so you ended up with an actual movie.
Yeah.
Right. And so with the way it's done now, I wouldn't be surprised if this new movie never even comes out. There's loads of stories, aren't there? There have always been, of just sort of production hell.
Yeah.
And it seems like this Snow White is sort of beginning to fall sort of firmly into that bracket of just it's a nightmare. And almost certainly what they end up putting out, if they put out anything, will be trash.
Yeah, well, but see, this is something that we're going to jump to next with this next story. But Disney doesn't make good things anymore. Everything they have comes with a fresh serving of controversy, and usually the people that are starring in it are help driving the controversy. I think they've chosen doom. They've chosen violence against their own constituency, who isn't the people that are making it. It's the people that are going to be your customer watching it. That's not a smart business model, I don't think.
Yeah.
But
I mean, another thing that sprung to mind is, again, we touched on the idea that it was sort of it's deliberate subversion, what they were trying to do from day one.
Yeah.
A sort of a very conscious, deliberate perversion of the Snow White story fable. If you look back to the original Disney animated thing, right, it's from like the 1930s. It's pre-war, isn't it? It's pre-World War II. I'm pretty
37.
sure.
37.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is anyone that watches it, if it was a child or whatever, you watched it, and it's sort of it's a nice thing. It's sort of a wholesome, fairly beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And they've obviously, there was an obvious decision. I mean, Rachel Zegler's on record as saying it's weird. Do you remember how saying, it's weird? It's weird. Yeah. It's like, no, you're weird for thinking it's weird. It's really not weird. It was a lovely thing.
Yeah.
So again, they reap what they sow. Yeah. And it's funny. I'll play a tiny violin for them. How about that?
I don't know. I don't know if you could find that one that they deserve. It'd be very, very tiny. It'd be microscopic. But we have one more super chat we want to get to before we jump into why I think Disney's doomed, or another reason anyway. TNeil89, thank you, my friend, for $5 in super chat, aka dislikes puns. I know. Disney waste money on a film which will instill only anger from the audience? No, that'd be like Microsoft making a questionable business decision. Firmly tongue-in-cheek. And you are correct, though. Disney has wasted an extraordinary amount of money. recently. And if you pay attention to anybody in the industry that has to do damage control, in other words, like crisis PR, Disney has to employ an awful lot of those people all the time. They're very, very busy with that. And their internal group that used to be really good at that when Xenia was there, not so much anymore. So yeah, Xenia Muncha used to be the controller of message at Disney, and she isn't. But speaking of controller of message, we need to shuffle on, folks. I'm going to say that every single time because Nate hates it so much now. So I'll be doing that for the rest of the show.